Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we're back for another exciting week of G.I. Joe. Joe on Joe Illustrated. We're covering G.I. Joe 134. That's right, guys. Last week was 133, and this week I'm throwing you a curveball with 134. Strap it down. Get ready. Get excited. More ninja action. It's certainly not slowing down. Next week is part one of the 4-part Snake Eyes and the Ninja Force adventure. So where the whole book gets rebranded. I know that it's not a lot of people's favorite time, but we're going to make the most of it. We're going to enjoy it because it is our boy Snake Eyes, and we get some kill count updates this week, which is exciting. Snake Eyes does not hold back on the murder, so that's very, very cool. What's also very, very cool is all of you great listeners reaching out, social media, reaching out via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Joe on Joe Pod, reaching out to my Gmail at joeonjoepod@gmail.com, letting me know what you think of the show, just having general conversations. I appreciate it so much. I also appreciate every rate and review you give on your podcatcher. While you're on that podcatcher, I appreciate you giving a look at our great sponsor, the Movies in a Meal podcast.
Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie. It's about not 2 movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben. And each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show.
And G.I. Joe news, I've not yet gotten the awesome items that a friend of the show, Jeremiah, picked up for me at San Diego Comic-Con from the Super 7 group booth. I'm excited to see them, so I haven't gotten them in my hands. I have been told that a friend has a line on me for some Serpentor, and multiple notes from our friends out there in Joe Land from last week on, let me make sure I give people the proper credit, because this was awesome. Yorktown Joe, you pinged me with the heads up on the Dr. Mindbender. That was awesome. Thank you so much. And then G.I. Gary, you were talking about that possibly the DC project, that bit we read about Larry last week. The DC project might have been his Bucky O'Hare project, which is crazy because I'm trying to work out in my head where Bucky O'Hare would fit into the DC universe, especially at the time. Like, would it have been some kind of relation to, what do you call Captain Carrot in the Amazing Zoo Crew? This of course would have been the late 70s. Captain Carrot was early 80s, so that would have been like a predecessor to Captain Carrot. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But that's a good thought, that if Larry brought to them this idea of Bucky O'Hare. Now, if you guys don't know who or what Bucky O'Hare is, it is a space rabbit that Larry created that I'm trying to think if I've actually read any of his comics. I think I have one issue of the comic book. But it was kind of popular. And it was popular in that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle style vein where there was a cartoon. There were some action figures related to it. So I can't speak from like personal experience of, oh yeah, and it was awesome. I remember reading whatever. I think I do have one issue of Bucky O'Hare filed somewhere, but it did not come out through DC Comics. So that mystery continues. And then I got a notice that some of my Hasbro pre-orders are shipping. By the time we get this recorded next week, I think I should have them in the hand. These are the carded classified figures. So I think it was Baroness J, Gung Ho, and I'm not sure who the other one was. But so the carded versions of them, and not the box versions. So that's really cool. Yeah, and I think that's all the preamble. Before we get into this week's exciting episode, so we're covering G.I. Joe 134, which was cover dated March of 1993. So you know what that means.
You were saying?
We're going to look at comic books that were on the shelf with a cover date of March 93. We'll start at DC Comics, and we'll start it alphabetically, just, working the way from the bottom up. Wonder Woman 72, it's got a great Brian Boland cover, and it's actually an iconic Brian Boland cover. If you're not a fan of Brian Boland, you should be. He does amazing work, and this stretch of Wonder Woman covers has become iconic. Not, certainly not all of them, but there's more than most of these books are actually worth a little something on the aftermarket because of the cover, not necessarily what was going on inside. And this is, I would say, this is probably the most expensive one of them, because this is Wonder Woman with her right leg arched up on a, like standing in a kind of a Captain Morgan-y pose, and she's got her shield, and there's some spears and her headgear draped over her. There's a cape draped over it stuff, and she's like standing in profile, like it's a full profile shot of her head to toe, and would be at home on any type of merchandise or anything. And it's just a stunning drawing of Wonder Woman by Brian Boland. So this cover is really, really amazing. On that note, there's a whole lot of modern comics that are really ratcheting up from their covers, and not just because they're variant covers. I was having this conversation at the shop the other day, Golden Apple Comics, best shop in LA. Stop in there when you can. I sound like a neophyte when I say it, but because I don't think I'm finding the right way to express the thoughts behind it. Covers have always sold. Like, you do a variant cover of something, it always sells, and it sells because there's less of it. But when the thing that I'm seeing lately is standard covers that just have these super, super iconic images have really been jumping up in price. And this goes, and I'm talking stuff going back to Silver and Bronze Age stuff, where those covers were cool, but they were just quietly cool. I'm thinking of the Wolverine Hulk. Hulk is a bouncer. Wolverine is they're both they're bouncer. They're both in suits. They're both in white tuxedos, like that cover. That cover has slammed that book a lot in the last few years. And in, prior years, it's a $5 book. It's not an expensive book based on what goes on inside. These Brian Boland Wonder Womans are exactly I like the way I said that. Wonder Womans. These Wonder Woman issues by Brian Boland are another great example of that. The covers have been great, and we've appreciated them for a long time, but there seems to be something in the market that is snapping up these iconic covers more these days, is what I'm saying. And it's and they're not based on variants. They're not based on cool artists. Although, no one's gonna tell me Brian Boland ain't cool, but you know what I'm saying. They're not like current Peach Momoko cover artists. They're just these iconic stuff. There's a Jock Batman cover where it's the Joker and his face is made out of bats, and it's not that old. It's maybe 15 years old. Maybe it's from like 2008. It's definitely pre-New 52. So yeah, probably 2007 maybe. And that cover has jumped up simply because of it, not because of anything that's in the issue. And they were making a ton of those Batmans. So it shouldn't be that rare, but really people are really starting to snap them up based on some of these iconic covers. So keep that in mind, collector out there. If you, when you go through your collection and you're running into a run of books that are relatively common, I would say like the Wolverine, there's a lot of copies of Wolverine out there. That's not really a hard to find book. But then you go, oh, this cover really, really pops. Well, the rest of the world knows that cover really, really pops too. So they're gonna snap it up. And that seems to be this. There just seems to be a new wave, and maybe it's the wave of. It might be the wave, and this is 100% supposition, but the wave of comic readers who didn't grow up with this, so they're younger than us, but they're also not collecting back issues per se. They are only reading either digital or in trades, but then they say those specific books I need to get. So that's why the overall value of the books, of the runs, aren't going up, using Wolverine for the example. But those specific issues, because the readers who are just reading in either omnibus or reading them digitally or whatever, those covers just stand out. So they want to grab those books, not necessarily because they're putting complete runs together and it's not necessarily someone's first appearance. They're just reaching out and saying, I really, really love that cover. That's the only kind of explanation that I can figure out that seems to make sense to me. And I have a feeling the next time I think about this, that's going to cement in my head, and that's going to be my thesis going forward. So congratulations, world. You're welcome. Speaking of great covers, Hellblazer 63 is it's kind of an iconic cover. It's one of the Glenn Fabry covers during the Ennis Dillon era, and it's John Constantine staring at you with a drink in his hand, a cigarette in his mouth, and Swamp Thing and Phantom Stranger over his shoulder. This is a really, really great cover. I might be thinking this was on the cover of one of the trades. That might be why it stands out to me. But it's a wonderful cover. I need to read more Hellblazer simply because I've rarely read much. I love Ennis and Dillon, and I love them as a pair, and I've read some of their issues of Hellblazer and enjoyed them. That's a series, though, I need to go back and really revisit. Same thing with Sandman. Sandman, of course, is starting on Netflix this week. By the time you hear this, I think it drops that either Wednesday or maybe Thursday. So it will probably be out there by the time you listen to this. I actually finally recently put together an actual complete collection of Sandman. So I need to sit down and actually read them because I wasn't emo in high school. So I never read Sandman in high school. That's always my joke. You got to be a comic fan to actually get that joke. But actually, speaking of Sandman, this is great. I have read this, Death: The High Cost of Living, issue number 1. This is a book where I am consistently shocked at how non-valuable it is on the aftermarket, because The High Cost of Living always was praised as being an amazing comic book. It is an amazing comic book, and it has never really popped as a back issue. I think there's like a platinum cover that is expensive, but that's different. That's a very special cover. That doesn't really count. I'm talking about just the standard, this miniseries. It's not her, it's certainly not her first appearance, but it's Death's big breakout mini. And so maybe the Sandman show will make that miniseries pop. I'm actually interested to see that. Yeah. So that's it. I mean, everything else from DC is kind of placeholdery, like it's like good stuff coming out, but it's part 2 of the story or just a continuing adventure kind of a thing. I don't see, it's a great cover with Laurel Gand in her new Legion outfit and Legion of Superheroes number 41 with her new like black and gold or black and orange kind of outfit. So that's a good look. It's by Chris Sprouse. So that's exciting, but nothing, I mean, yeah. So some good stuff, but nothing really crazy. So now
you were saying
we're going to take a look over at Marvel, and we'll start from the bottom up at Marvel again. Over in X-Men 18, Omega Red makes his return to the pages of X-Men. this is my formative era for X-Men. This was really when I was reading it month to month, and I need to revisit this stuff because I've revisited the Claremont stuff a lot, and I know this is post Claremont, but I'm talking about like Claremont Byrne, even Claremont Smith, Claremont Cockrum, Claremont Jr. Jr. I've not revisited Claremont Silvestri as much, although I have. And Claremont Lee I've really not revisited as much. So it's interesting. The stuff that I've revisited was stuff that when I was a kid, I read in arrears to begin with. So the books that I was reading as they were coming out are books that those are the issues that I've really not gone back and kind of reminisced on when it comes to X-Men. Yeah, that's interesting. Huh. X-Men Classic has a wonderful cover by Joe Madureira with Mystique and Nightcrawler. And, she would be revealed to be his mother. She was supposed to be his father, which I think makes even more sense. That's awesome because she's a shape changer. But she was revealed to be his mother. And this was reprinting. I'll bet you this was reprinting. I'll just click through instead of gambling. Oh, at 177. So it's reprinting 177, which was originally. Oh, it's that J.R. Jr. Wolverine cover where he's standing over the stabbed Kitty Pryde. That's cool. But yeah, this Joe Madureira cover is really cool. I like Joe Madureira stuff. I wish he did more comics. I know he went and made a ton of money in video games. And just general. Doing other art projects. So I'm certainly not going to fault him for making some scratch. That is not the case. Hold on. Let me reset this page. All right. So we'll just start from the top then. Again, Amazing Spider-Man 375. This cover has really gone up in value. I think it's close to $30 now. And it's one of those foil covers. So, we're always made fun of the foil stuff. Sometimes it happens. But in this case, I believe the foil excitement is because it's got Venom. It's Mark Bagley Spider-Man Venom on the cover with a gold foil backdrop. And they're clenched in the middle. Plus, it's 375, so it's an oversized anniversary issue. It's a cool book. Avengers 360 was them trying to do a foil cover to kind of capitalize on Vision being all white, right? So you have an all white / silver foil cover. They did a similar one with Fantastic Four right around this time where it was all red and it was Johnny Storm. And in both cases, you can barely see the character. And it's embossed too, so that's the thing. There's no actual line art on it. It's just the embossed, the figure art is popped out of it. It's almost impossible to see what the actual cover. That's the final result of it. There's a reason they don't do more like this, is because it really doesn't. It pops it because it's a shiny cover, but you kind of can't tell what's actually on the cover. But it's still neat. It's still one of those artifacts. That's the right word. Artifacts of the era. Is that? No, I don't think that's Morbius in Daredevil. It's not Morbin time. I think that's just some other vampire dude. Let's see. Fantastic Four Unlimited #1. Why is that important, guys? Herb Trimpe. And why is this a landmark book? And I will stand by this. I've talked about this on the show because this was when Herb Trimpe, who's a consummate professional and an amazing artist, saw that some of the artwork at the time was moving. We've talked about happening here in G.I. Joe. It was going very imagey, right? So a lot of the extremes and a lot of the exaggerated style of that era, we all know what we're talking about. And if we don't, there's a lot of books on the subject, and we'll dig into it in some detail occasionally here. Trimpe, who had been an industry veteran since the late 60s, and so now he's at this point, he's probably a 30-year veteran, if not longer, to be honest. I don't know exactly when he made his crack, but he was doing early Hulk issues. So he's at least a 30-year veteran, at very, very least, I would say. In 93, yeah, he probably started drawing. Yeah, okay, we'll say that. we know that he's a master of G.I. Joe. If you've ever seen his Hulk work, especially I would say actually his early Hulk work, it is gorgeous stuff. And he saw that he was, and I've read this in articles, that, you know, he was getting less work, or the editors were saying, hey, this is the hot style. This is the style we want to, emulate. And this man, who was by far a veteran of the industry, changed his style to match Image Comics. And he started doing all the Image tricks, to, like, I almost called it sexy women, but it's not really, because they're distorted. But, like women with, exaggerated body frames, too many lines in various places, muscles where muscles never existed before, pouches that just shouldn't be, faces that are screaming when there's no reason for them to be screaming, things like that. That was the style at the time. And Trimpe 100% adapted his style, and it is on display in this Fantastic Four Unlimited run. It either went 12 issues or maybe 18. I think it was 12. I recently reread the final issue, which is funny because the final issue of it doesn't actually have the issue number on the cover. Marvel made a lot of mistakes on their covers back then. One of them was they started moving the issue number like to weird spots so that it wouldn't be apparent that what issue number it was. They thought that the cover alone is how people were going to keep track of things. It was wildly insane. You have to look really, really hard to see the issue numbers on a lot of books in this era. But on this one issue of FF Unlimited, the actual last issue, it's just gone. There is no issue number on the cover. They just screwed it up. Anyway, that's an aside. Point being, Herb Trimpe, who we all know and love from G.I. Joe, modified his work to get more work in the current scheme of Marvel at the time. And if that's not an ultimate professional, and people were vocal about saying that they didn't love it. Like, people were vocal. They didn't hide it to themselves. But what he was doing was he was adapting to the times, which he did over the course of his years. In his early years, he was very Kirby, and then he kind of became a little more Romita-y, and so on and so forth. I got nothing but praise for him. And yes, this style, this version of Trimpe on FF Unlimited may not be your favorite version of Trimpe, but I would say it's the style that unfortunately he was forced to choose. It doesn't mean he lost his fastball. I think his fastball got even better with this stuff. Genuinely, I really, really feel that way. I felt this way for a long time because I too was, when I first looked at it and I didn't really have a mental understanding of it, I was like, what is happening here? And this would have been in arrears. This would have been me getting these as back issues. So not at the time. I wasn't reading this at the time. This was probably early 2000s, maybe late 90s when I was picking these issues up. And I was really thrown off by it. I'm like, this is Herb Trimpe. And over the years, my opinion on it really is formed of like, what a consummate master. That's what he was able to do. And I have absolutely since read interviews about that, of articles pointing that out, that's what he was up to. So yeah, so Fantastic Four Unlimited, check it out by G.I. Joe fan favorite Herb Trimpe. Of course, we got G.I. Joe 134. What else? Hulk fighting both Juggernaut, Dr. Octopus, circus master, or ringmaster of crime rather, and the leader. So it makes me think this is all in his head. 290, Iron Man 290. This is a little bit of that new Iron Man. I think this might be the debut of it. The one that had no face mask on it. Like, it had no face. It had eye slits, but had no mouth. So it looked like a blank face. And I believe the right reasoning was because Tony was controlling it all mentally. I never liked that armor because of that. There's certain things about the Iron Man armor that I think are needed. And unfortunately, a mouth is one of them. And I don't know. It just humanizes the whole thing. I don't know. Last time we talked about Nelson Publications, and here it is, The Life of Christ, the Easter story. This is on the shelf this month. Thor 460, another one of my, I think this is Hildebrand Brothers doing the cover, and it really creeps me out. It's a real oily version, like a bodybuilder oily version of Thor holding a hammer. And it's really well done. It's great. It's drawn really well. So this is not a commentary. It is a commentary on, it is creepy because it's just there's too many muscles. It's Morbin time. Morbius Living Vampire number 7. I have absolutely no idea what happens in that. I'm better for it, I think. And is that it for the big stuff here? I think so. Oh, Venom, Death Trap, The Vault. There's a lot of colons in that title. I think this was Venom gets put into the vault and then he has to escape, and it's a big escape plan there. I think that's what that was. And Freedom Force maybe was there to guard him, something like that. All right. I did start reading the X-Men Omnibus, and this is the not Uncanny X-Men, the Stan Lee Kirby early X-Men. I'm excited. I've never read all of them in order. I've read a lot of them out of order. I even have had I've had digital PDFs of the X-Men since they came out with those CDs in the early 2000s, or even was that late 90s. I've had digital PDFs of the X-Men run, and I so dislike reading things digitally that I've never sat down to read them all. So I finally broke down. I got the omnibus, and I'm excited to do it.
Now, mass is ready.
That's right, Destro. G.I. Joe 134 is here. We're going to start with the cover. It's a lot going on. I wouldn't say this is the most well-balanced cover, but it certainly features the people we want to feature. I do think that the looks on the the Red Ninjas' faces kind of say everything that I would want to say about this cover. They're kind of looking at you. They're kind of looking up at Firefly's crotch, and they're kind of saying, what are we doing here? There is more paperwork, and you heard me, paperwork. Remember when Snake Eyes was traveling through the Cobra headquarters, he was encountering a lot of errant papers. Well, there's a lot of paperwork on this page. I think that's to give it depth. I don't know if that succeeds. And Snake Eyes is leaping up in the air to confront Firefly as the top of, you remember that scorpion stance that he had set up in the previous issue. Kind of suspect on the scorpion stance. And they're trying to kind of recreate this on the cover. I could have lived without a recreation of the scorpion stance here. Just throwing that out there. I don't know where. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this cover. I'm kind of not. I like the logo getting a shot up. That's cool. I like the Snake Eyes picture in the top left being cut up, especially between the logo and the picture, because we know what happens next issue is the whole thing gets rebranded into Snake Eyes 135. So I wonder if this was intentional. If it was intentional, awesome, brilliant. If it wasn't, that's just a great stroke of luck because it works between 134 and 135. 134, you get kind of the destruction of the logo. You've seen that a lot, like in Thor, like heralding a new era, and then 135 being the new era of G.I. Joe starring Snake Eyes in the Ninja Force. So if that's on purpose, that's very cool. Again, don't like the look of Firefly. That's not the book's fault. That's a bad look for Firefly. It looks like those whatever canisters on his legs. It looks like they're taped to his legs, which is not good. Yeah, and so it's just too much. It's too busy. It's too much. I would have put this one back in the oven a little bit. And then I don't know. They're shooting at Firefly, but Snake Eyes is jumping up there. Like if you shoot at this giant stack of ninjas, you're going to bring Firefly down quicker. Than you know what I mean? Like come on.
Yo, Joe!
Anywhoots. Throwdown in the Citadel. Now the credits, they've got Larry Hama as the company commander, Andrew Wildman as the platoon leader, Stephen Baskerville as the munitions specialist, Bob Sharon, color guard, Rick Parker, burial detail, David Wohl, intelligence officer, and Tom DeFalco is the post commander. So, this issue is a great example of this love-hate thing I have going on with Andrew Wildman's work on this stuff. One, certainly no offense to Andrew Wildman. I've enjoyed his stuff. But there's this level of grit and detail that he gives to the characters that I absolutely adore. I really do. This page is a great example of it. Look at the time he takes to put the detail in on Duke. Not only on his like musculature, but all the camo, the hairs on his forearm. Look at the way he draws Roblox Ma Deuce. That's great. Like that is really nice draftsmanship. Lady J's hair, like all the bullets, the ammo belts, right? Everyone's ammo belt is really like there is a level of detail here, reminiscent of like an Art Adams kind of detail or a I don't want to say Mobius because that's going too far, but like an Art Adams. We'll stop at Art Adams level of hatching and detail, but not too far, right? Where it's still portraying, quasi-realistic proportions and things like that. So I really, really appreciate that. And then we're going to drop the hammer on that comment in the next page or in the next few pages. But like this page is great, and it shows the three of them. Remember they had hid in the swamp as the Cobra patrol passed them. So now they're kind of inside the perimeter of Cobra.
Yo, Joe!
And then we get a nice 2-page spread here of Snake Eyes leaping, kind of recreating the cover, leaping at Firefly, who is standing on top of that Cobra Scorpion pyramid thing, which is kind of silly. But it's great detail on this page, though. He does a nice job with filling this room and placing us inside the room. It's it's kind of got the feel of like a castle, right? So you got these heavy brick walls. There's overturned tables, so you could imagine people would dine there, things like that. The Cobra draperies on the wall. So all that there's really nice detail on this page. And again, when you get a Snake Eyes fight, there's always one person that does a lot of the narrative lifting, and so that's Firefly here. So he's kind of Firefly and one of the Red Ninjas, naming Snake Eyes for us, kind of filling us in on the situation that he's, quote, hopelessly outnumbered, yet he still attacks. And then Firefly saying, not even the great Snake Eyes can defeat the invincible Scorpion formation.
Yo, Joe!
Yeah, Scorpion. That's just, again, Snake Eyes. Well, actually, let's be real. Let's be very clear here. Snake Eyes does exactly what I was about to just recommend he do, which is gut the people holding up the pyramid. Like it's like a, for those of you who aren't in front of the comic book, imagine a cheerleading pyramid where you've got, 5 people on the bottom, and then they're holding up 3 people, and they're holding up 1 person. That's the kind of thing here, where they're all standing on each other's shoulders, and at the very top of this pyramid is Firefly. And so when Snake Eyes jumps up, Firefly slashes at him, and it's a little bit of the Obi-Wan Qui-Gon, or Obi-Wan Anakin, I have the high ground now stuff. Obviously, this predates that, but, I have the high ground. But Snake Eyes just literally guts the lower part of the pyramid, which makes the whole Scorpion fall. I don't know how that's considered an unbeatable stance. but that's according to Firefly, it is. According to Firefly, completely unbeatable. But Snake Eyes, 100% guts. There is bloodshed on this page. This guy yelling shriek, and there's a little bit of, this is almost a Wilhelm screen. So I'm adding 1 to the Snake Eyes kill count. That actually puts us at an even 5. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a 50, everybody. By my count, we've crossed the 50 Snake Eyes kill count.
Yo, Joe!
And I like the detail that he gives us on Snake Eyes. The action lines and like the movement overtaking the page, whereas, which is more of an image design set than the page kind of encompassing the action. We're getting more and more into that era, so that's becoming a thing. I'm okay with that. Certainly it's if you gripe about that too much, you get into a little bit of the old school, get off my lawn stuff. Like, when Neil Adams started making the panels bigger and different angles and, doing the stuff that he did with the early X-Men stuff. Like when he started doing that, I'm sure there were people saying like, you can't do your panels that way. So So making the action define the panels instead of the panels defining the action, I think is probably the best way to put it, right? Because when the action defines the panels, you get a lot more broken panels or lack of panels, really lack of. And in this case, like I would say this page is 1, 2, 3 panels over an overlay, right? So yes, there's a kind of a jagged, rough, rudimentary panel framework in the back, but that's kind of more to just bracket the page than it is to say this action's happening in this panel. That's an image style, right? That's one of the hallmarks of image, where it was the action that was moving the page, not necessarily the work within the panels, if that makes any sense. So now we're at the main gate page, and this is now where I go into my love-hate stuff a little bit, where we've got the 3 Joes out front. And again, I'm questioning, why do they only send 4 Joes on this mission, this kind of important mission? But they did. And everyone's screaming at full volume. That's where I get into the love-hate stuff. When everything's a scream, is nothing truly frightening? That's my question. So yes, good detail here, although I don't know where Lady J's right leg is kind of coming from or going to. And Roblox's head feels really big, but those are the kind of, once again, image-ish, using that as an adjective, hallmarks of the era, right? Where certain things start to get exaggerated for the pose, not necessarily for the reality of it. But the level of detail he puts on this page is great, and credit to the inking as well, like that it stays with it. Maybe we need a little more full blacks in some places, but there's nice work on the gun on Roblox Modus that looks really nice, and it really gives a 3D pop effect to it.
Yo, Joe!
So more bats are coming out of the castle, just to recap the action. In Roblox, there's just all screaming, lots of screaming. And by that I just mean mouths wide open, faces. There's little face acting, right? There needs to be more facial acting on these pages, and that's where I would lament this current. By current, I mean this era we're reviewing. That's where I would lament one of the biggest losses of that era is the lack of acting, and the more everything went extremes yelling instead of a little more subtlety. But then again, how much subtlety do you want when you're getting chased down by a bunch of robotic killer Terminators, So, who am I?
Yo, Joe!
Roadblock, who had been kind of overwhelmed by some bats, comes out, and it's great though. He's got 2 bats like still hanging off of him, and they're still saying destroy, 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 and he puts the barrel. Now I don't know how he fired this gun without either both breaking his right wrist, and also he's now deaf. He's 100% deaf. He willfully, it makes for a funny gag when you think about it, which is what we're doing here. We're thinking about it. He puts the barrel of the Modus under the chin of the bat to blow it away. That's hanging off his shoulder, which it's a funny gag. I get it. But that Modus, the kick involved there, his right hand, I feel like would be broken. Like the wrist would snap, and then he would be deaf. It is inches from his own ear, and he's choosing to fire that gun. So rest in peace, Roadblock's hearing. And then we have a very angry Duke, or I don't know, he's screaming, but he's saying, "Grab all the ammo you can. We're gonna get upstairs to Snake Eyes." But overall, they did a good job.
Yo, Joe!
And the marshes outside the Citadel. So this is where they were looking for those Joes. And it's Firefly. Basically, he's on comms with him, and he says, like, the dudes you're looking for are in the building. I don't know how you missed them. And then we're starting to see the first bits of the brainwashing starting to wear off on Slice and Dice. And this narratively is setting us up for what we will eventually find in what eventually happens in the wrap up of the story. Kind of how this ends. So you need this bit of them questioning reminding us that they're under mind control, that under duress, Firefly put them under, hypnosis and everything. That is needed you need to hammer that home because of what happens towards the end of it. And then we get a bat that comes in and kind of updates Firefly of what's going on.
Yo, Joe!
Now down below, again, great detail. And I genuinely mean this. I really love this detail down here. And the Joes find a battle android trooper processing, I guess, create like a assembly line. Yeah, that's the right word. Yeah, it's the assembly line. So all the damaged bats are getting repaired by the functional bats, and then the now functional bats are making more bats. So it's just as Roblox says, a geometric progression, and so we're going to get more and more bats. So this Roblox suggests just lining the place with C4 and blowing it up. Now, this whole thing is kind of the crux of where the current Joe series has been at, and we're not talking about that. We're certainly not jumping ahead to 140 some issues or 160 issues. We're not doing that, but like the current Joe issues.
Yo, Joe!
Are dealing all with robots and bats and battle android troopers and stuff like that, and that seems to be a topic that Larry wants to visit. And I don't think I'm ready to talk about that now, and I don't mean that in a taste way. I mean that in a thesis way. He's got to be saying something, and my first blush is it's his commentary on the disposability of the modern of a soldier. Not necessarily the modern soldier, but because this was written before drones and stuff like that. But it's kind of that. I feel like that might be it. It might be the whole thing of having them fight robots. Yes, it serves the purpose of letting your character, your marketed to children characters, do mass amounts of destruction. We talked about this when we dealt with the cartoon. Once they introduced bats to the cartoon, then the Joes could quote unquote kill people, and they could hit them with lasers and shoot them and chop them up and all that stuff. And because they're robots, they were fine. And that certainly serves the same purpose in the comic book, but the comics never really had problems with seeing cobras die. You go all the way to those early issues. Didn't Scarface die? Like we're at a 50 Snake Eyes kill count, right? So I don't think that's 100% it. I don't think it's just being told to give them a disposable adversary, which I do think was part of the issue or part of the directive on the cartoon. Because he really leans into it. He really leans into the robot stuff. And I wonder if does anyone know? Has Larry ever given an interview on this of like where, why, and how did is this a thing? Like, is AI a big personal passion for him? Is this just a commentary on the kind of the disposability of soldiers? And like what is he saying with that? So I don't know that I have a thesis, but that's where my brain is forming. If I were writing a paper, that would be like my pitch thesis to the professor. And then if they gave it the green light, then I would go back and I would try to prove it or disprove it. I think that's probably it. So now we're in the armory here, and we've got some red ninjas and some battle android troopers, and they're pointing out that they're trying to catch Snake Eyes, and they see that there's a crate of C4 that's been opened. And very smartly, the Red Ninja sends the bats first, and Snake Eyes had planted a remote charge, so the bats are dead. But now this kind of gives them a clue. And Snake Eyes left a red cable, right? So this is like it's like a breadcrumb, really. So this explosion happened, so then they figure, oh, he must have a detonator that's attached to him. So if we follow the red cable, we're going to find Snake Eyes because he just blew up some bats.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, the bat plant, Slice and Dice have finally caught up with Jay and Duke and Roblox, and we just get a lot of, it's a lot of gunplay, a lot of pow pows and vips and buis and chungs. But the whole assembly line is now coming to life, and they're going to attack the Joes. Except, as Lady J points out, the completed bats behind them. So we know that's going to come into play. And Duke, this is a little short-sighted, Duke. He says, don't worry about them. They haven't been activated yet. Which I guess in the moment, you wouldn't worry about them.
Yo, Joe!
But you know it's going to happen. This is a nice 9-page grid. You don't see this a lot in G.I. Joe. I know we've seen it before, but it's been a long time. I can't remember when. I love me a 9-panel grid. Going back to Giffen and Legion. I love it. And this is like the adventures of Red Ninja 1 and Red Ninja 2. It's the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of ninjas. They're following this debt cable. Looks like they're crawling up like like a wall or an elevator shaft. They're climbing on a ceiling. They see that Snake Eyes took the time to attach it to a ceiling. They get up into a room where there's like a mortar. What is it? It's a howitzer. And they see that there's some cables running out of the howitzer. That's probably a distraction. And they follow this red cable, and the red cable takes you all the way to the giant wad of C4 that's like planted on the wall, 50 pounds, and it abuts the TV control room. So they realize, hey, but those green wires we saw, those also are going into this. Well, if the red wires that we thought were controlling the other C4 are going into this C4, and then the green wires are leading out from the C4 to somewhere else, that means this whole mass is wired to a remote detonator? Huh?
Yo, Joe!
And we have Snake Eyes kill number 51. 51, everybody. 51. Yeah, so it's a pretty great move. So Snake Eyes just blows the wall and the Cobras. And it's smart because he knows he's being followed. So before he blows that wall and breaches, he might as well wait. It's actually a video game tactic. If you guys, trying to think of a game that would do it, something like a MOBA kind of game, but where if your guy's getting chased by stuff and you have a bomb, especially if you have to blow a wall with it too, but you set the bomb and you wait until everyone catches up to you, and then when the most people are around that bomb, then you hit the thing. And in this case, he had one bomb, he needed to blow the wall, and he waited until some red ninja snuck up on it, and then he blew the wall. So that's a pretty smooth move by Snake Eyes. And then he pops through this said wall with his sword out and guns out. It's cool. I love this. I love the way Snake Eyes portrayed from the waist up. I don't like this. It's like I almost said like I want more detail on Snake Eyes' crotch. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, and it's actually I feel the same way about Firefly's outfit, his costume too. Is that once you get to the waist, all the detail leaves. And I don't have the figure in front of me, so I don't know. It might be a figure issue too, but it's like there's no detail post waist, until you get to like to the mid calves, like the boots and stuff. And the same thing with Firefly.
Yo, Joe!
So in the bat plant below, as the Joes are fighting, we get Slice and Dice kind of grabbing the remote control, the bat box, as it's like to call. And of course, they start up the bats that were behind Duke. So, that's going to happen. But hey, one problem at a time, right, Duke? It's good. It's a good. I like the camera choices here. I would have put it a little more angled on top. They're trying to put an angle here in the top picture instead of it just being straight across. They're trying to get. Let me see here. Actually, Well, I take that back. Actually, there's a little bit of a. No, we actually have a problem here. So in the first panel, unless 100%. It is the bats shooting their own people. But if it's the Joes shooting the bats, well, there is, I don't know. It looks like there's just bats being caught in the crossfire because there's some bullets going to the right and some very few going to the left. But the bullets going to the right seem to be the ones that are destroying all the bats. So I would think that means those are the Joes bullets. And if so, based on the rest of this page, those bullets / lasers / whatever should be coming from the right to the left, because then you get the next panel of that's the setup for the next panel, and then you get to the bottom panel for the same thing, same kind of angles. So it's actually a little bit flipped on the top, I think, unless we're supposed to think that and we're supposed to realize that all these bats are just caught up in crossfire, which might be the case.
Yo, Joe!
So now we're back to Firefly and Snake Eyes. We must protect Firefly from Snake Eyes at any cost. This is one of the red ninjas. And the dude that says we must and gets cut with an ARG, I'm giving Snake Eyes another kill on that, because it seems to me that Snake Eyes severs his spine. That's a good one. He also blows a bat with his Uzi, and he takes a sword to the back of this guy's neck, and there's a bunch of what's colored to be spittle because it's not blood red, but it's got to be blood that's coming off the back of that red ninja. So now Firefly, before he just fights Snake Eyes, he wants to patch us in live to all the monitors so that everyone can witness his defeat. We also have in this panel a steaming cup of Cobra coffee, which is weird because that tells me in the middle of all this, Firefly was just drinking coffee. Firefly was just making a fresh, hot cup of coffee. Like, I love the detail, but the fact that it's steaming and hot, and it's just a mug. It is, it's not some kind of Yeti mug, right? It just seems to be an open-topped mug that someone was real recently drinking some real fresh coffee in that room, and that makes me chuckle.
Yo, Joe!
This is the panel. This is actually a great example of the panel I'm talking about. With Wildman's work. I love the detail on this. This is really great. He really goes into it with Duke, Jay, and Block beating up these androids. It's really awesome. Roblox's doing the scream. Jay's doing a version of the scream. Duke's giving a grimace, which is good. I'm glad Duke's not doing the scream. That's what saves us here. But like, this is a great panel. This is a lot of fun. There's not a lot of background. There's not a lot of placement. But this is where, like, this is such an action moment. Yeah, let's focus on this and let's just give you a nice drawing for that. So I like this panel a lot. And Slice and Dice are they're about to get into the fray. And that's when they see on the TV screen that Firefly just turned on for plot reasons, MacGuffin reasons, that he and Snake Eyes are about to square off.
Yo, Joe!
And before they do, though, Snake Eyes pops his sword into the ground, kind of like unarms himself, right? It just like goes down, and because Firefly has to do a little bit of narrative lifting because it is not clear, and this is not a fault of the art. The art's perfectly fine, but disarming yourself right before a fight is kind of hard to draw, like, the intent. So I do absolutely 100% see why you would need someone to call it out what's happening. But he says, you've embedded your sword in the floor and effectively disarmed yourself without an ulterior motive. And then Snake Eyes puts his hands into the Arashikage mindset. He says, that's it, you're going to use the mindset on me. But have you forgotten I'm a ninja master? The mindset won't work on me.
Yo, Joe!
Which that doesn't make any sense. Of course the mindset would work on you. It worked on Storm Shadow, it worked on Snake Eyes. You're not a better master than those guys anyway. But that's not what Snake Eyes was doing, though. Snake Eyes, once he saw that he turned the cameras on, Snake Eyes used it to unlock Slice and Dice and the rest of the ninjas. And in their words, suddenly I don't feel all that obedient to Firefly anymore. So that's what's going on there. So that's pretty cool. And then Firefly thrusts his sword. Snake Eyes does that open hand clap on the sword to stop it, the results of which we get on the next page. And then Slice and Dice are now no longer, they don't want to help Firefly. So they kind of turn off the bats, and all the rest of the Joes are kind of saved because Firefly, Slice and Dice are a little pissed at Firefly.
Yo, Joe!
So as Snake Eyes gets the upper hand on Firefly and kind of a judo move, that's when Slice and Dice show up with the rest of the red ninjas. And they say, you're going to answer to yours truly, Slice, and my associate Dice, and a score of red ninjas for turning us into zombies. And Snake Eyes leaves them and walks away, kind of like when he left the Barovian guy to the mercies of the crowd. You remember that? That was wild.
Yo, Joe!
And a little wrap up. So Duke and Jay and Roadblock are kind of, dusting themselves off here, and they're like, what happened? Like, where did all the ninjas go? And we see on the TV monitor that the ninjas are cornering Firefly, and he's saying, let's talk this over. I'm sure we can work something out. So that's when the issue ends with a really nice timed Snake Eyes turns the TV off because they don't need to see that. Now, I don't remember if this was the end of Firefly. I doubt it. I'm sure he's probably lived. But and that's a great way to avoid, as far as for all you storytellers out there, it's a great way to avoid making that choice. Like if your goal is not to actually kill Firefly, you can just leave it in the reader's mind, and it's a great cliffhanger. It's something you can carry on to the next issue and explain. Oh my God, did he live? Did he not live? That kind of a thing. It's very much like trapping him in the tanker. So you're effectively ended this story. But you've not really definitively said, did Slice and Dice kill him? Did he escape? Whatever. Because who knows what you're going to need next time. And it's always better to, leave your toys in the sandbox so you can play with them later. So we've got Postbox from the Pit. We've got letters here from Dustin Bullock from Prince George, British Columbia in Canada. Oof. Prince George. This is cool. This is interesting. And it confirms something we always suspected and we really knew. But he was talking about so many characters that you hardly ever use. You should go back and use some of them. And they say, as far as going back to the old costumes, we're constantly trying to update characters to keep them fresh. And this is the part, and consistent with Hasbro. So they have to keep up with the toys that were being released at the time. So here's someone, Kevin Generally. That's his that's a weird last name. Address withheld. But he makes a good point. And he says, my friends and I have been collecting Joe for many years. I love the current girls that are in the Joes, but we need more. Here are my suggestions. A new Jinx, a new Zorana, a new Scarlet, a new Lady J. I'm reading this, and he says, and an all-around new made-up females. So the response is, next issue, you get the new Scarlet, because she's in her new outfit. But it's that new characters that we're missing, especially on the Cobra side. And this goes to the Viper stuff that we're in. We're in that Viper era. We just need more characters, more people. And certainly more female characters, because it just stopped, and there's only so many versions of each of these that we can get behind. We got a letter from Kevin Myrtle or Murty from Cleo, Michigan. Jesse Westad from Colorado Springs, Colorado, and Mike Heinlein from Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Jose Travis Garcia from San Antonio, Texas. And Ryan Langbine, address withheld, and Michael Coetzee, 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 and hey, all you G.I. Joe burgers. Oh, is that your name? Do you guys call yourself G.I. Joe burgers? If you don't, can you? Can I start calling myself? Because I love our friends at G.I. Joe Burg. Do we call ourselves G.I. Joe burgers if we're fans of the G.I. Joe Burg podcast? Did I just coin this? Please tell me someone else thought of this already. I can't believe it took me this long to think of this. I've known those guys for years. But this gentleman is from Kempton Park, South Africa. So that's an all over the globe letters page. So I'm excited. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you listening and coming back every week. Next week is 135, which is the Snake Eyes one. And it's also the issues, and I have them with me, that came with the trading cards. So next week we're going to talk a little trading cards. I'm seeing them now. They look great. I don't know the history of those. I don't know how many they produced. I don't know. Were there different ones in every issue? We're going to find out next issue. We're going to talk about it at least. So next time on Joe and Joe, now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.